CDC earlier this week reduced its recommended quarantine period for those with asymptomatic COVID from 10 days following a positive test result to just 5. Given the current COVID spike and the extremely contagious nature of the Omicron variant, change seems counterintuitive and has become somewhat of a running joke on Twitter. For more, we're joined on the KCBS Ring Central Newsline by Paul Seegert, managing partner at PCS Advisors, an employee healthcare consulting firm in Northern California. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What are the new CDC recommendations, and how did they differ from those for unvaccinated versus those who are vaccinated or vaccinated and boosted?
Well, if you're vaccinated, they've cut the quarantine time down quite a bit, and I think some of that has to do with the fact that they realize the population we're dealing with some fatigue now, pandemic fatigue, for as long as this has been going on. And if you aren't vaccinated, then the recommendation stays where it was before. And so it kind of does put them in the crosshairs of folks that have been keeping track of evolving guidance and sometimes conflicting guidance at different times throughout the pandemic. But I think it's good news overall.
Okay, so let's sort this out. So unvaccinated people, if they test positive for COVID, how long are they quarantining for?
It's still a couple of weeks if you're an unvaccinated person.
Okay, vaccinated people, though, this is what we're talking about. Instead of 10 days, it goes down to 5 days. So CDC guidance, any conflict with existing recommendations or requirements issued by California health authorities?
Well, generally what we've seen, California tends to be on the more aggressive side of these things. But I would expect that they're going to follow suit with the CDC because they do generally follow the CDC's guidance on these things.
All right. Now, what do you think of the public's reaction to the CDC's messaging? Does this make things any better, worse, or is it just a sideline issue?
I think it's somewhat of a sideline issue because people are already camped out on their various sides of the issue. You have those who are listening closely to what the CDC says and those who have stopped listening quite some time ago. And either way, you can find, unfortunately, in a way, you can find studies to back up what you'd like to believe. And the folks that are skeptical, they see that there's been what they would call noble lying that's occurred by some of the folks that are leading us through this pandemic, saying, as an example, don't wear masks, mostly because they didn't want to run on masks, versus wear masks, and some of that stuff that's evolved, I think they're able to point to and say, hey, what's going on? And they may have a point there. Another big example of that would be the fact that we've largely ignored natural immunity in our conversation around COVID, which is pretty unique amongst our peer countries. For the most part, our peer countries have recognized natural immunity as part of the formula that would get them to herd immunity.
So do you think overall businesses are pleased with this new recommendation, maybe getting their workers back into the workplace a little bit quicker?
Absolutely, without a doubt. They're in the toughest hiring period that they've seen in 15 years with the Great Resignation and all of the other factors that are making it difficult for them to staff their businesses. So I think this is very welcome news by the business community.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and wishing you a very happy, healthy new year. Paul Seegert, managing partner at PCS Advisors, an employee healthcare consulting firm in Northern California.